Most laws are not intended to compel good, but to restrain evil. Okay? We're not trying to make people good in most cases. We're simply trying to prevent them from taking an axe and putting it right between your eyes. That's important, I think. You think that's important? I think that's important. In fact, as James Madison said, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. In one of the most pithy quotes ever, that's it. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. The only thing worse than a bad government is no government. Anarchy, where people just do whatever they want. Martin Luther King said it well. It may be true that the law cannot make a man love me, but it can keep him from lynching me, and I think that's pretty important. Don't you think that's important? Now, tragically, it didn't help Martin Luther King. Even though there was a law against murder, somebody gunned him down. But generally, laws against murder are pretty effective. If you don't think so, let's take all the laws away and see what happens. There'd be a lot more dead people. So, most laws are not intended to compel good, but to restrain evil. Secondly, some laws do compel you to do good. For example, seatbelt laws, that's a good safety law. Laws that require you to educate children, that's important. Military service, when you hit 18, you have to file for selective service in case the country needs you. Also, jury duty. That is compelling you to do something. It is not just preventing you from doing evil, it is asking you to be a good citizen. So some laws do compel good, although most are designed simply to restrain evil. Finally, the law is a great teacher. It changes attitudes and behavior over the long term. I already brought this up with regard to slavery and with regard to abortion. The same is true with divorce. Who really liberalized divorce laws in this country? Who was the first governor to do so? Most of you are not going to believe this. Ronald Reagan was the first governor to liberalize divorce laws and make it much easier to get a divorce. That led to a domino effect. He signed the law, I think, in 1970, led to a domino effect across the nation where states began to make it much easier to get a divorce. Now this has spread everywhere, and the American family is breaking down at dramatic rates. Now, Reagan later went on to regret actually signing that law, but he started a whole chain of events which has led to the fatherlessness we experience in our culture today. The number one problem in America today, next to abortion, we're actually killing people in abortion. Number one problem next to that, fatherlessness. In fact, we're going to go through this later in the week, how incredibly important fathers are to a family, for families to stay together. Well, the law has helped destroy the family. The law is important. Now marriage, or now divorce is so easy to get. Due to the law, people think, well, it's no big deal. If you're just tired of somebody, you can just get a divorce. The law is important. Now, I'm sure there's people in here who have been divorced. I'm not here to condemn anybody for that. I'm simply saying that divorce ought to be harder to get, not easier. We ought to do everything we can to keep marriages together. And one of the things we ought to do is we ought to make it legally much more difficult to get a divorce, because the law helps affect behavior and teach people right from wrong. Here's how the law affects culture change. You have bad secular ideas are met with a bad Christian defense, which lead to bad civil laws, which encourage bad moral behavior. We can start with Darwin. When Darwin's ideas came out, Christians couldn't answer them. Now we can answer them very succinctly and very well. There are a number of books written on it. Macroevolution is a fairy tale for adults. Yet a lot of people think that it's true. It's not. We can get into that maybe at another seminar. We have in our book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, a couple of chapters on it if you want kind of a short course on it. But it's a fairy tale for adults. But back then, we couldn't deal with it. So you know what Christians did? They didn't see it, they didn't hear it, they didn't say anything about it, and as I mentioned before, they separated from society. They got out of society. Society then went godless. They trained a whole bunch of people who ultimately got to the Supreme Court, which relaxed the laws to the point where now we have bad moral behavior. We actually have people who think it's a moral right to take a full-term baby nearly completely out of the birth canal, drill a hole in the back of her skull, take a vacuum cleaner and suck her brains out, and then deliver a dead baby. That is a constitutional right, according to some people in this country. Why? Because Christians gave up education. Because Christians got out of society. Christians walked away from their calling to be salt and light in everything. The law is a great teacher. Many people think whatever is legal is moral and whatever is illegal is immoral. That's why we have to be engaged.